or, just whatever you want to say in a minute or so. Is that something you can do?
Sure.
Great. And where's our friend Cynthia? I don't see her.
Yeah, Cynthia's on there.
Hey,
as
Mr.
well.
Chairman, I'm here.
Hello, Cynthia. How are you?
Hey, good. I heard your commentary just now, no problem.
Good. Well, on your part, if you could just say that throughout this process, there'll be, I think you have like 5 or 3 meetings with the public. I can't remember.
Oh, we've had lots.
Lots.
But yeah, I can summarize.
Yeah, if you can just say we started this point and ended this way.
Sure.
A lot of our consultants and my, people in my organization, they would ask, when did this happen? How did we know about it and so forth? So I think at the end of your motion,
good.
yeah, I will keep wanting to say presentation, but it's not. But yeah.
Oh, it's a presentation. That's fair.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chairman, it looks like we are recording and streaming live on YouTube, so you may start the meeting anytime you're ready.
All right, good morning. Welcome to this virtual MetroPlan meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Nabil Mohaisin, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. Today's meeting was advertised on MetroPlan's Orlando's website and social media, as well as through targeted emails. Florida Sunshine Law requires that a quorum to be physically present in a room for government meetings. Governor DeSantis had suspended this requirement earlier this year in an executive order allowing government boards to conduct business using virtual meetings. This order has expired on October 31st, and so this meeting is being held in a workshop format. Staff will further explain what this means in just a moment. At this point, we will be entertaining public comments. We'll keep the microphones muted unless you have been recognized to speak, and we'll use the raise hand feature to participate in the discussion. There are 2 public comment points this meeting. Members of the public who want to speak will use the raise hand feature found in the participants tab. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you are called, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff and will ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. We also accepted comments by email and phone messages before the meeting. The guidelines for public comments posted at metroplanorlando.org/virtual meetings. We want this and all future meetings, all future online meetings to be accessible to all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need accommodation to participate in a future meeting, please contact MetroPlan Orlando's staff. I would like to thank Lee Putnam, my vice chair, for sitting and running the meeting last month on October 23rd for me. I appreciate that. I was not feeling good, but I'm back for this last meeting of the year. And just wanted to give a couple of words as food for thought to us. This year has been probably a setback for all of us. It has not been a normal year for us. Shockwaves through the global maritime transportation industry has laid the foundation for troubled times ahead, but I am glad to report from what I've heard and read that professionals in the industry expects and predicts that this coming year, 2021, to be a year of growth in the transportation industry. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel, especially with the vaccine coming online here shortly. So just want to tell you all that hope springs eternal. So keep the hope high, and thank you for your diligence in that, and through the meetings and through this past year. This time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Keith Caskey of MetroPlan Orlando to do the staff agenda review. Mr. Caskey.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members and all those attending online. Thank you for working with us as we conduct these virtual meetings. And as always, we appreciate your patience and understanding. And based on the direction from our board of their September meeting, this meeting is being held as a virtual workshop in which action items that are being advanced to the MetroPlan Orlando board will be reviewed and discussed, but no formal action will be taken, so the quorum will not be required. And the board's action on these items will be ratified at a future in-person TAC meeting. And at this point, we're not sure when that's going to be. But of course, this format is subject to change if the governor issues another executive order. So again, thank you for your flexibility during this time. As the chairman mentioned, we'll be using the raise hands feature to recognize committee members during the meeting and to call on members of the public during the comment time. So if you have joined us on the phone only without the video screen, please use the *6 to mute and unmute your line. And please use *9 to raise your virtual hand so the meeting host can see that you wish to be recognized. And you'll see that there's a chat feature on your toolbar, and this communicates with all panelists in this meeting, which includes committee members, staff, and presenters. Please only use this if you are having technical issues or need assistance. A full record of the chat comments will be included with the public record of this meeting. Mr. Chairman, that completes my announcements this morning, and there are no changes to the agenda. And now we'd like to take attendance. I'll ask Ms. Lisa Smith to call the roll for the record. Again, there are no action items, so we'll be able to move forward even if there is not a quorum present. So Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Keith. I'll ask all committee members to please go ahead and unmute yourselves now for the roll call, and you can go on mute again once your name is called. Please make sure your video is on if possible so that we can confirm that it's you. You'll find the unmute and video buttons on the bottom left side of your toolbar on the bottom of your screen. Please say here or present when your name is called. Andre Anderson. Brett Blackadar.
Present.
Kelly Brock. Travis Matthias. Christopher Kearns.
Here.
Michael Cash.
I'm here.
Gus Castro.
Here.
Crystal Clem.
Present.
Ashley Cornelison.
Here.
Joshua DeVries.
Present.
Azam El Hassar.
Present.
Brad Friel. Commissioner Ed Gold. Glenn Hammer. Will Hawthorne.
Present.
Pam Richmond.
Present.
Conroy Jacobs.
Present.
John Dredge.
Here.
Amy King.
Here.
Steve Krug.
Here.
Fred Milch.
Present.
Mary Moskowitz.
Here.
Nabil Muhaisen.
Here.
Renzo Nastasi.
Present.
Miles O'Keefe.
Present.
Tawny Olor.
Present.
Tom Radzai.
Present.
Lee Pulliam.
Here.
Michael Rigby. Rachel Giranella.
Present.
Ramon Sonorins. Ian Saconia.
Present.
Chad Smith.
Present.
Regina Ramos.
Present.
Stephen Thorpe. Alyssa Edie.
Here.
Sarah Walter.
Present.
Bill Wharton.
Here.
John Williams. Mr. Chair, that concludes the roll call.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We will now hear public comments on what we normally call action items, but this format will be our item for review and or discussion. Do we have people who want to speak on any of these items? If so, please use the raise hand function found at the bottom of your screen or by pressing *9 on your phone keypad. When we call your name, the host will unmute your microphone. You will see a button pop up that says the host wants to unmute you. Accept that prompt to activate your microphone. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record. Please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any hands raised for comments.
Are there any written comments that were submitted before the meeting?
No, there were not.
All right, thank you. We have no presentations on the agenda for this meeting, so we'll move on to the items for review. We have 3 items to review today. The first item is the review of October 23rd, 2020 meeting minutes from last meeting, which are at tab 1 in your agenda packet. I hope you all had a chance to review them. Are there any corrections or revisions that need to be brought to the staff's attention at this time? As a reminder, these items will be brought back for formal approval at the future in-person meeting. The second item we have is a review of the FDOT amendment to FY 2020-21 through 2024/25 TIP. FDOT amendment will be presented by Mr. Caskey. Mr. Caskey.
Okay, the amendment we have this month includes 4 projects. There's a new pedestrian lighting project in Orange County. And then we have additional funding for a traffic signal project at US 441 and State Road 50. And then Lynx has funds rolling forward from 2020 to 2021 for their capital grant to purchase buses. And then there's a new advanced traffic operations project in downtown Orlando that's being funded by a grant from FHWA. And, you know, as the chairman said, you all have the information in your agenda packets. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
This is available under tab 2. Is there any questions for Mr. Caskey?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Renzo, please go ahead.
On the lighting bundle, in the past, we got the full list of what that bundle entailed in terms of, you know, the various roadways. I didn't see it attached in the agenda. Is that available?
It should be in the letter. I think there were 4 intersections on US 441 that it, you know, gives the 4 different locations there.
I guess my question is not, so the bundles consist, you know, of numerous roadways that are scheduled for lighting. So it's more than just these 4. In the past, there was a list of all the various bundles indicating all the roads that were going to be lit. So it's a much more extensive list.
Well, as far as this particular bundle is concerned, the information we got from DOT was that it was just those 4 locations, but we can check back with FDOT and see if there's any additional information on that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, not to belabor this too much, but I'd appreciate it if we could get from the department the complete list of the lighting program by bundle, by project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Noted. Any other questions for Keith?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
So this may be more for links, but on the item for the buses, there is an increase in local funding as well of $825,000. I just want to verify that that's coming from existing budget and there's not an increase from the local funding partners for that.
Yes, those funds roll forward from the previous fiscal year. So that's, as far as I know, there's no increase to the, the increase required from local governments.
Okay, and then also I know in past, the way this is reported, it looks, appears to be under the Orange County funding, but this is region-wide. I believe in past memos, there's been a statement that, states that the links funding is region-wide. And I did not see that in the memo that you all write. I know it's not in the letter, but it's in the memo presented by MetroPlan. So I would recommend just including that in that memo that you provide to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments for Ms. Gasky? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the third item on our agenda. That is a review of the 2045 MTP cost feasible plan will be presented by Ms. Cynthia Lombard and Mr. Alex Strauger from MetroPlan. Cynthia and Alex, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So this will be a tag team presentation. I'll begin by talking a little bit about public participation, and then Alex will go into some updates that we've made on the technical side to the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, MTP for short, of course. The chairman asked me to give a little bit more of a background on the process. So, you all have heard a lot of presentations from us in the past few months on different aspects of the long range plan. But from the public, I'll speak to the public participation side, and then Alex will speak a little bit to the background on the technical side. So our public participation started about a year ago, and we have been able to interact with thousands of Central Floridians and get input from many during this entire process. So there have been a lot of different ways for people to be able to have a part in the planning process and a voice in the planning process. That we use a lot of different methods and strategies to be able to reach the public. Pre-COVID, we had a lot of different events with at different communities around our 3-county area, as well as a lot of students that we were able to reach as well, and have educate them a little bit more about transportation planning. So we really enjoyed talking to our young ones. And when after COVID hit, we had to do a little bit of adjusting and pursue really more of a digital and virtual strategy for public engagement, but we're still able to set up a process that allowed the public to actively participate through our virtual programs. So we held a series of those programs, which we've reported out to you in the past. So now we're really at the end of this adoption journey for the 2045 plan. And next slide, please. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the public input that we've gotten specifically on the draft 2045 plan. And so shortly after your last meeting, we held our public meeting for the plan, which was called 2045 Plan, the Reveal. And this was an all virtual meeting. And so at the live virtual event, it was very well attended. We had 100 attendees, and about 42% of those were return participants. So in other words, they had been involved with us earlier in the process, and we're now here at this program to see what the final product looked like. And the webinar recording has been very well viewed on our site. It's got over 200 views now, with being up just short of a month. So that's been going well as well. A lot of people have caught the recording after the fact. That program contained an overview of the 2045 plan, but we also had a really great discussion with different members of our staff who served on a panel. And we talked about a lot of the policy issues related to long range planning and some of the challenges and opportunities that the region faces. We took questions from the audience, and then we also took formal public comment at that event as well. So one of the polling questions that we asked the audience, you see the results here on the bottom part of this slide. As you all know, we have a significant amount of unfunded needs in our 2045 plan. Unfortunately, don't have the money to fund all those. So we asked if money did fall out of the sky, how would people want to spend it? So these are the responses we got. We actually got a really good mix across the modes, but the most popular, say top three for this one was more bus and rail was number one. And then for 2 and 3 were tied here at smart signals and technology and safety projects. So this was the feedback that we got from the people who were there at the live event. Next slide, please. So we had a public comment period on the draft 2045 plan that lasted a little bit over a month. And so it was open from October 16th through November 20th. And people were able to write in many different ways. So they were able to email. We had a public comment voice line set up that people could leave messages. We had a form on our website on the virtual tour landing page. And then, as I already mentioned, we took live public comments as well at our virtual public meeting. So we received a lot of really great comments, and at tab 3 in your agendas today, you'll find all the supporting material for this item, including the full public record that it includes the text of all the comments that we got. So if you haven't taken the time to read through those comments yet, I really encourage you to do so. It'll give you a look into the mind of the public, you know, what they want, what they desire. I'm going to go over a bit of an overview of the analysis of comments today, but I think for you all who work in this business, it would really be helpful to you to actually read the text of those comments. So you'll see the chart here on the slide that goes over some of the more popular topics that people commented on. For the most part, these 39 comments came in from individuals, but we also had some groups that wrote in letters on behalf of their whole group. So I'll go a little bit more into that in just a second. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So when we took the text of all these comments and put them into a word cloud generator, this is what came out. So, you know, you can take a look at it and draw your own conclusions here. But what I got when I first saw this was it really, a couple things stood out to me. The first one was kind of the link between people and transportation. You know, you see not only words from the different modes, but also public, people, community. So we really, you know, as you all know, transportation has a really big impact on quality of life. And so I think that really came through when I looked at this. But big and bold here in blue, biggest word you see there is transit. So again, this was the most popular topic for public comments that were submitted. And people wanted, it was really a wide variety of comments on transit that pertained to both bus and rail. So it was a mix. But for the most part, it had to do with how do we improve the transit system, improve the convenience of the transit system. So more frequent service, more routes, first and last mile, better connections there. A lot of members wrote in about the importance of a transit system to serving and supporting access for underserved communities. A couple folks even suggested that, you know, perhaps we want to take a look at combining our transit agencies under one umbrella in the region to better serve the needs. An advocacy group called Central Floridians for Public Transit wrote in quite a lengthy letter with several suggestions for improvement and urging more funding for transit. So if you want to read the text of that letter, that's at comment number 38. But moving into kind of our next most popular topic, which was funding, this was also quite related to transit as well. A lot of the funding comments spoke to the need for a dedicated funding source for transit. And the other half of the funding comments really had to do with bicycle and pedestrian projects. So the desire for more investment for both bike and ped projects. We also had a few folks comment on the need to find just a new model for funding transportation. So something to replace the gas tax. And there were a few suggestions along those lines as well. For the most part, a large portion of the comments that came in, there was such wide variety in topics that we kind of put them into this general category. But there were a few geographic regions that folks specifically called out and wanting to see improve transportation in their particular neighborhood or area. Some of those areas called out were East Orange County, the Avalon Stony Brook area, Rosemont in West Orange County, and Poinciana Four Corners down in Osceola. We also got a lot of thanks and compliments. So a few members of the public took the time to write some positive comments in, which of course we also always appreciate on the government side. Corinne Drive was another big topic area. As you all know, we completed the Corinne Drive Complete Streets study that wrapped up last year. And the kind of final product was a recommended design for a complete street in that area. And so a lot of the residents have stayed in touch with us and they continue to advocate. They really want to see that project funded. So we are working on trying to advance that as quickly as possible. We have design funded in the current TIP, and we are working on trying to get construction in the next TIP. So we continue to try to advance that. Bicycle and pedestrian was another big topic area. A lot of these comments focus on the issue of safety for these vulnerable populations. Advocacy group Bike Walk Central Florida wrote in. You all know this is the group that oversees the Best Foot Forward for Pedestrian Safety program that we help fund. And they praised the multimodal direction that the plan is going in, but really encouraged more spending on bike and ped projects, of course, because of trying to improve safety. The Florida Trail Association also took the time to write in, and they wanted to see the Florida National Scenic Trail reflected in our maps. And they also advocated for a land bridge project across the 528 to connect Desert Ranch with the Hal Scott Preserve. We have technology is another big area. When we're looking to the future, of course, people are really interested to suggest a lot of different types of technology that they believe we should be planning for. So we got a few of those comments. And we also heard from the City of Orlando folks that are working on their future ready plan, encouraging us to coordinate there, which we are. And then on the environmental side, we heard from the Florida Forest Service that there are no significant impacts to the 2 state forests in our area, and they had a couple of other suggestions. So we were glad to hear from them and have that coordination with environmental groups. So, Mr. Chairman, that is the overview of kind of the public participation side and the comments that we received on the draft plan. And at this point, I will turn it over to Alex to talk about some of the updates that we made to the cost feasible plan.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Cynthia. Really, the core of my presentation is really talking about, what has changed since the last time we came together and discussed the draft cost feasible plan. But before I dive into that, per the request of the chair, I'm just briefly going to talk process. So we kicked off, our technical or the planning approach, for this plan over 2 years ago. And a lot of that started, with some of the traditional steps in developing travel demand models. So both model validation side, but also developing, socioeconomic data, based on current conditions and then working out to the future. We've coordinated with your staff or many of you as part of that process, in helping DOT put together the Central Florida Regional Planning Model. But like I said, kicked off over 2 years ago. We've had 7 meetings with the MTP working group. So I do want to thank each of you, both to our technical advisory committee members as well. I neglected to, thank our systems management operation group members earlier today for engaging with us. We hope that was a valuable experience. And that was really our first time having kind of a cross-sectoral, extremely diverse steering body for our plan. So that group included, again, members of our advisory committee, but also members from agencies and other interested parties that traditionally wouldn't be engaged in the planning process. So that was big and new, and we believe that added a lot of value and provided a great deal of insight to the planning process. But for about a year and a half now, we've made presentations every month to this group on almost every topic that we've talked about as part of the long range plan. In some cases, multiple presentations on each topic. Given kind of the pandemic situation, we also held a webinar on 2 of those topics, one environmental planning and health, which was big, where we engaged the environment and health community and how we can better include and plan for that as part of the long range planning process. And we also had what we called Future Fest. It was a webinar that really delved deep into the issues of the future. What are those unknowns? How do we plan for them? With that level of uncertainty, planning for the future, with so much uncertainty. So we've engaged a lot. Many of you are probably tired of hearing from me. So maybe you'll get a break next year. Hopefully you won't see me too often presenting. But either way, we've spent a lot of time presenting new methods. This was a new plan, a new approach. We knew that from day one that we weren't going to be a get the red out, roadway widening plan. This was going to be a multimodal plan. That was the end in mind. So that's a little bit about the process. Many presentations, all of those are actually posted on the MetroPlan Orlando YouTube channel. So you can check out each of those. I think between Cynthia and I, we're kind of, probably 80 plus presentations this year, at least to our advisory committees, if not more when you count public participation and other engagement events. But back to core content and what has changed since the last time we spoke. And we can go to the next slide, and it's really encapsulated in these 5 bullet points. And a lot of the feedback that we received was actually from you. So again, we appreciate you guys taking the time to review, to provide feedback, to provide commentary, so we can make this, the best plan it can possibly be, given the circumstances. But as it relates to changes, modifications that were made, a lot of them had to do with project limits, and that's kind of getting into logical termini. So we used a few different needs assessment processes, which we've discussed in detail. And as part of that process, we had different limits. Some may be different from our priority list limits because we had different network segmentation. But based on the comments we received, we updated those limits, updated those project lengths, so we can use our cost allocation model appropriately. There are also some cases where we had duplicate projects, especially as it related to the local lists, and then some of our widening lists, we had duplicates. So those were removed appropriately. We revised a lot of projects, not a lot, but a handful of project descriptions. These are projects that were previously, wide into 6. Those basically are now like operational ITS projects rather than kind of going full-blown road widening. We also, identified some of those projects that need to be complete streets that were previously widening projects. So that's what we heard from you, and we responded and made those updates. Also, we got more information from Florida's Turnpike Enterprise about cost feasible projects. So we included those. We had a lot of partially funded toll road projects on the Turnpike Enterprise system. After continued coordination, we've identified additional projects that will be fully funded as part of this plan, and it's some additional partially funded projects. We also heard feedback last month from our local governments about local transportation revenues. And so we've worked with those, and we've updated those revenues to be as consistent as possible with your capital improvement programs. So that should show in the locally funded project lists. And then based on all of those changes, we have updated our documentation, both the narrative and the cost feasible tables, to kind of include and encapsulate all the feedback that we received. So that's in a nutshell, the changes that we've made. But if we can go to the next slide, based on those changes, what we're looking at is a $27.9 billion plan. It's almost a $28 billion plan from 2026 through 2045. That includes federal, state, local, and toll funds. And as you can see at the bottom image of that slide, over 53% of those funds are toll revenues. So that investment in that system, really provides a lot of value and additional capacity to moving people around and through the region. But the focus of the remainder of my presentation is really going to be, again, on that federal, state, and local funds, $13.19 billion, 47% of our funds available through 26 through 45. And that's the 20-year period outside of our transportation improvement program. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about those funding programs. And, I mentioned this at TSMO earlier today, but I think it's important to acknowledge again, not all funding sources, not all funding types are created equally. Many have to be used for specific purposes and project types, certain systems. So there's a lot of eligibility criteria as it relates to some of our funds. But I've said this many times through the planning process, where we have flexibility, where we as an agency have latitude based on our urbanized area status. We are flexing our funds consistent with our board's policies. So you see a lot of I-4 investment. That's the completion of the I-4 Ultimate, or what we know as I-4 Ultimate, Kirkman to 434. But we also have the segments, north of 434, or rather east of 434 up to the Volusia County line, and our southern or western limits as well, Kirkman south to the Polk County line. So that's in the I-4 category. State roads is a multimodal list, as you see when you review that. Table, a lot of different project types, some roadway widening on the state highway system, but also a lot of complete streets projects, safety projects, operational and systems management projects are happening on the state highway system. So that's a very multimodal list. Again, as I've mentioned in previous presentations, traditionally that state road list used to just be a widening list if you look past that previous plan. So we're pretty happy that, we're starting to move the needle, turn the big ship, into kind of more that multimodal context sensitive approach to planning. We're also using off-system, or we've identified an off-system widening program. So these are funds that would traditionally be spent on the state highway system that we are basically using to support our local government partners in advancing some congestion and capacity issues. So I'll talk about that more in a second. As we look at TSMO, Transportation Systems Management Operation, complete streets, and in the bike ped categories, I know those 1%, are pretty shocking. A lot of it kind of goes back to my comment about, not all funds are created equally, and some of these larger projects and funds water down those programs. But, while they show 1%, I think it's important to note the TSMO category is actually 21% of our urbanized area funds. So that's where we have that flexibility. It is only 1% kind of drop in the bucket, but as it relates to our board's policies, it's actually 21% of those eligible funds. Complete streets is actually 32% of those funds. It's $203 million over the life of the plan. In our bike ped and trails category, that's 17% of our urbanized area funds, over $108 million over the life of the plan. Like I said before, those are dedicated project lists or project type lists, but our state roads and as well as our local lists are multimodal lists. So they include bike ped, complete streets, and those systems management operations projects. It's important to note, though, the state roads projects obviously have to be on the state highway system, but when we look off system widening, TSMO, complete streets, bike ped, and trail, that's actually off the state highway system. You're pretty familiar with that. That's consistent with our priority list and TIP. But that's how those that's what the funds are looking like for this particular category. We can go to the next slide. I'm going to kind of reemphasize what I talked about last month, which is some of those new funding programs that we identified as part of this plan. And these came from the scenario planning process, from feedback that we received from members of the public. And really from our needs assessment. We set goals, objectives, and performance targets, and we identified needs. And as staff, it's a matter of how do we accomplish those goals and objectives within the funding availability and flexibility that we have. So we're continuing our signal retiming program that you and our systems management operations group played a vital role in managing year to year. So we're going to continue that, and we're ingraining it into our long range plan to be consistent between our planning products. We've also identified $250,000 a year for automated, connected, electric, and shared vehicle demonstration projects. So we're setting aside those funds as part of the plan, but we're actually going to be coming back to you and our TSMO group early next year to start identifying those candidate projects, prioritizing those projects, and beginning programming those projects starting in fiscal year 26. So again, $250,000 a year to support our local governments and providing that funds to be a test bed for high technology. As it relates to active transportation, we have our school mobility program. This is something that we really did not have encapsulated in our long range plans in previous years. But again, important to note as we talk active transportation, providing safe routes and high accessibility to schools, $1 million a year over the life of the plan, $20 million total. Same thing with critical sidewalk gaps. We identified, hundreds of miles of sidewalk gaps in our region. We've identified those critical ones based on a criteria, multi-criteria analysis that focused on safety, access, and health. And so we'll be working with this group, the Technical Advisory Committee, early next year to start to develop bundles and packages of those projects. So a lot of gaps, some of them are miles, some of them are a couple hundred feet, but we've identified some areas of need And what we're going to do is work with you, like I said, early next year to start bundling or packaging up those projects so we can work through the LAP program to get those funded. We're going to continue our support to local governments as well. We have $1 million a year for special planning studies. We've supported multiple local partners in corridor and sub-area studies, area-specific studies to kind of help address some of their transportation and mobility challenges. And we see that as helping kind of leveling the playing field for some of our municipalities that don't have a deep bench as it pertains to planning staff. So that's something that we're proud of and we believe provides a lot of value to our region. I mentioned on the previous slide, the off-system widening. This is our local road widening program. So $290 million over the life of the plan. We're only funding the construction and construction engineering inspection phases. So that list will actually require our local governments to advance the preliminary phases from PD&E, through right-of-way and environmental. But we will be there to fund the construction, which is always that big lift. And the last policy that I believe is notable here is our board's policy to use up to 30% of our district dedicated revenue for premium transit. That's a policy that our board has all had on the books for a few years now, but this is our first time implementing it within a long range plan, within this metropolitan transportation plan. So between the years 2036 through 45, we've identified $90 million of that district dedicated revenue that can be spent on eligible premium transit projects. If we can go to the next slide, please. Just wanted to note, as part of our both public participation process, but just more about visualization, as part of this plan, we've identified multiple web-based application tools to allow people kind of immerse themselves in the transportation data. So this was within our data viewer, which has been up for about 6 months now. We actually just added 2 new categories, our cost feasible projects and our multimodal needs. Obviously, the cost feasible projects are the affordable subset of needs. So you'll see that as you toggle between those 2 tabs, we have the full set of unfunded, unfinancially constrained needs, and then we have our cost feasible plan, which is based on eligibility and funding availability. But that map can be found at the link below. But if you go to the MetroPlan Orlando website, Maps and Tools tab, you'll see 3 or 4 tools, and this one's called Data Viewer. Click OK, and then it's pretty intuitive. Especially if you have some form of kind of a GIS background, but pretty intuitive even for those who do not. So that information is up there. We're constantly improving or trying to improve our GIS or our spatial data program. So this is a step in that direction to visualize those projects. We can go to the next slide, please, which is really where I want to just ask for your opinions, your thoughts, your feedback. As I mentioned earlier at TISMO, this is normally where we would ask for your approval of the plan, but based on our current circumstances and the workshop format of this meeting, we're really just trying to reach consensus, trying to gain feedback, commentary that our chair, that Nabil can share with our board at their meeting next week. So with that, final thoughts and feedback, or if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to field those. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, for articulating this long and tedious process. You went through a great simplification for us and great work. Thank you. The same goes for Cynthia, who's, I guess I can say, patience is a vice here, where you be patient with the public. And I've been through public meetings, as we all have, and we know how that could turn from pleasant to unpleasant quickly. So. Thanks for your patience and putting a positive spin on your experience there with the public, and congratulations to you both. With this, are there any further comments or questions for Cynthia and Alex at this point?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So just to echo your sentiments, Mr. Chairman, I just want to congratulate the MetroPlan staff in putting this document, the study together. I know it was a long and tedious process, but I think it's well worth it. And I think it's been generally well received by the public from at least everything that I've seen. So just would like to thank all the staff. But I do have 2 questions. And they have to do with the support of local government piece of the presentation and the report. First, on the planning studies, have all of the issues been worked out with the department in regards to the respective roles of MetroPlan and DOT? I know it's not, we have two studies, of course, they're not part of the long range plan, but they're in the current TIP, or at least in the current time frame. I was wondering if those issues had been worked out.
Renzo, I'll address that for you. Right now, they have not. We are still under the same LAP guidelines that the department has imposed, which do not allow for LAP projects to be planning level studies. So we have added those funds into our MTP, so we can put them in the UPWP to help support the local governments for situations like this.
Okay, so more to come, I guess.
More to come. We're still in discussions.
All right, and then the second question had to do with the local widening program, the local roadway widening program. I understand that they're only for the construction phases, but are those, is the process sort of a LAP agreement process, or what is it exactly, and how do those projects get inserted into the priority list and the TIP ultimately?
So the plan is to have that as, just like we have separate priority lists based on our programs, we would have an off-system widening list. And this is using 10% of the other arterial funds, which we estimate to be the portion of federal funds that DOT gets for our urbanized areas. So those are those SA funds. So we have those pulled aside to go through kind of a LAP program for widening projects, which we haven't had historically because of our TMA policy for off-system has been all complete streets and multimodal. So this provides another LAP program for those widening projects.
And will there be specific criteria to have these projects funded?
There'll be the same ranking process that we use for our performance-based prioritization process. So we'll rank them and then present to the committees. But with that program, it will require communication and work with the TAC and TISMO committee because it requires phases to be done beforehand. So similar to, say, the trip list that we had for implementation, if the phases are done, then we can move forward and try to program that construction and CEI. As with the trip, we had to wait for the local governments to have their 50% match. So very similar process that we'll work through the prioritization process with the committees.
So this program will not start until the 5th year, is that right?
That's correct. The funds aren't available. The first year is fiscal year 25-26.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, thank you all for all the hard work.
Thanks, Renzo. Anybody has any other comments, please, for Cynthia and Alex?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any other hands raised at this point.
All right, thanks, Keith. I have a question for Nick, since you were warmed up with a couple questions earlier. My experience used to be that you would either reach out or be asked to come to the municipal government or the members to help them prioritize their projects internally. Are you still able to do that in light of what we're going through as far as the distancing and all that stuff?
Well, we'll still have meetings, but the process had changed 2 years ago with the federal requirement to do a performance-based planning process. So we have to use a data-driven approach, which is why we haven't had those group meetings to discuss prioritization and move things around. We have just been presenting the rankings after the group has decided the performance measures and the metrics that we've used. But with this new plan and our new programs, there will be more group collaboration on projects as we're building a consensus to move them forward, because not all of our programs fall within a roadway that we can get metrics on. So there'll be more of a balance between that with our new prioritization process moving forward.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for your feedback. If there's no other questions or comments, we can move on. There are no TAC committee meetings or presentations today. As you heard earlier, there is general information under tab 3 in your agenda packet, if you want to look at that. Our next TAC meeting will be in January 22nd, 2021, and it will be a virtual workshop again like this one, where a quorum will not be required. If this changes, you will be notified by MetroPlan Orlando staff. The next MetroPlan Orlando board meeting will be next week on December 9th, and will be a hybrid meeting with some board members and staff of the public attending in person, and other board members and staff members, as well as members of the public, will be attending virtually on Zoom. At this point, I'd like to ask if there are any committee members who have final comments. Please raise the hand function and unmute yourself when you are recognized. Are there any comments from any committee members or anyone who is present right now with the committee?
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, Shad Smith has a hand raised.
Okay.
Yes, Chairman. I have a question regarding, I saw that State Road 414 study was in there from the Expressway Authority. And I just was wanting to find out if they are going to at some point do a presentation for us when they get further along, or kind of what the status is other than their little presentation. Have they got anywhere or anything like that? I see Will's there.
Shad, I need to look at my calendar. I think the first project advisory group meeting is coming up soon. So I think they're just beginning the process, but we can schedule or look to have a presentation once they're a little bit further along, if you would like.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, I think it's just early in the process right now.
It is. It's Will. And I think
Thanks,
Kathy's been reaching out to you, Nick, to try and get something scheduled, if that's the desire of the board.
Yeah, she has something on my calendar. We just haven't, I don't think we've discussed yet.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Smith. Anyone else? This is your last chance at the last tech meeting of the year.
Yeah, Rakenya Henson has an announcement she wants to make.
Yes, please go ahead, Kenya.
Good morning. Thank you, excuse me, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I just wanted to make a couple of brief announcements. The first being that the work program public hearing has been rescheduled. We're looking at the dates of January 11th through the 15th with an in-person meeting at the district office in DeLand on the evening of January 14th. As soon as there's more details that are developed, we'll be sure to share those to the committees and also to the board and MPO so that that information can get out. Secondly, being that we've revised our construction report that goes out in your meeting, excuse me, information, just an effort to make them easier to read, kind of an at a glance type format. But if you have any questions or comments in regards to the reports, you should see them in the next round of reports that go out. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to send them our way. We're looking to make that an easier format for people to be able to follow the information. The last one in regards to allocations, the department has actually finally received their allocation. We're working through the work program development cycle, also working with the MPO to make sure that we are keeping the priority list front and center to be able to move as many projects forward in this fiscal year as possible. Just wanted to share those three brief announcements with you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Henson, for the announcements. I think they're good to know. Anyone else has any other comments before we move on?
Mr. Chairman, Will Hawthorne has a comment.
Mr. Hawthorne, past chair, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to let Chad know and the board know that the EAG and PAG meetings are taking place next Tuesday. Those are the kickoff for the 414 Expressway extension. So once we have those, I guess we can work with Nick to get something scheduled if the board would like a presentation. And I wanted to thank you, Nabil, for adapting well this year and serving as our chairman. You've definitely got a curveball thrown your way, and I think you've done a very good job. So thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no other comments, we'll move on to the final public comment of the meeting today. If any members of the public wishes to comment, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. we will unmute your mic. After you are recognized, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised.
All right. Are there any written or phone comments that were submitted prior to the meeting today?
No, there were not.
All right. Well, it's been a long year, as Mr. Hawthorne mentioned, and thanks to the great help of MetroPlan staff and to your perseverance, we have made it possible, and we finished this year. Hopefully 2021 will be a better year. And as I said earlier, hope springs eternal. Have a happy holiday, and this meeting is adjourned.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays.